Folks, welcome. Am I on, Miss Amy? You can hear me? All right, welcome to this October 8th regular City Commission meeting. We've got a few changes to our agenda, so before I go through that, I want to take a minute and welcome Macaulay Faulkner. Did I say that right? Michaela Faulkner. She is our city clerk's new assistant. Thank you for joining us here in the city of Newberry. She's training there in the back, so she's going to be with us hopefully for a good long time. Right? Welcome to Newberry. If everyone's looking at their agenda, you will notice there were a couple of last-minute additions under agenda items C and B. Both those are two FERDAP grants that Wendy will take us through. Brian just handed those out to you. We are also going to add item G under agenda, which is Emergency Resolution 2018-47, authorizing the city manager or designee all authority as provided in section 252.38 to discharge the duties and exercise the powers in the state of an emergency. So there's three new agenda items. Two are listed on your agenda, C and D, the FERDAP grants, and then G is going to be added in. We also have the 4-H with us here tonight who are in a bit of a rush. So I'm going to ask the commission if we can push public announcements right after the pledge. They just have a 2-minute announcement that they want to make, and then we'll get into our presentations, which we have a lot of, so that would take them a while to get to that. And I believe I got everything. Mr. Manager, did I get everything? Because I've got a lot of notes on my agenda here, so I want to make sure.
Mr. Mayor, to the Mr. Mayor, to the best of my understanding, you covered everything.
Is what? Oh, and we're going to remove, we are going to remove, did you already remove Ricky from the agenda? Where's he at?
It's item
VA. We're going to remove, under presentations, we're going to remove item A, North Central Florida. Commissioner Coleman is not with us here tonight. He had some family obligations he had to take care of, and that agenda item pertained to him in particular, so we'll take that out. Okay, now did I get everything, all the changes to the agenda? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda with the changes?
Motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Hersom, a second from Commissioner Martin. Any audience questions or comments on the amendments and changes to the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much. We invite Deacon Conrad from Westside Baptist Church to give us our invocation. And if you would, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would love to have a 4-H member come up to the mic after the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would be so kind.
Okay, it is an honor to be able to address this body. I appreciate you inviting me. I'm here as a deacon from Westside Baptist Church, and don't represent the city of Newberry government or people of Newberry. I just speak from my own faith. So will you join me in prayer, please? This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Heavenly Father, we just ask your blessing tonight upon these city officials as they attempt to govern this city. We just ask that you give them wisdom and patience to deal with the issues on the agenda tonight. We ask that they are good listeners and listen to what the people have to say. And we ask the people in the audience, we ask that you all have patience and that we just are so thankful, Lord, that these folks are willing to come and participate in city government. We know that they have other things they might be doing tonight, but they chose to be here because they're concerned about what happens in the city of Newberry. And we're so thankful for that, Lord. So we just ask your blessing upon this meeting. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You'll step right to the mic.
I pledge my heart
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Deacon Conrad. All right. Public announcements. These are our 2-minute, real quick announcements. If you want to announce a garage sale or a lost dog or something happening in the community, now would be your time. Don't forget to introduce yourselves to us.
My name's Lydia McGraw. I am the president of the Newberry 4-H Club. And this is Camden. She's our vice president. And Landon, our treasurer. And it's National 4-H Week. So Alachua County, Florida is declaring October 1st through October 7th, 2018 as National 4-H Week in Alachua County, Florida. Whereas the Florida 4-H program has been positively impacting children's lives since 1909 and has celebrated over 100 years of service. Its mission is to create a supportive environment where diverse youth and adults may reach their fullest potential. And whereas 4-H is an organization open to all children 15 through 18 years of age, 4-H reaches over 6 million youth nationwide, with Florida having 235,000 youth members and over 10,000 adult volunteers, and with the Alachua County 4-H program boasting 2,500 members and over 100 volunteers. And whereas the Alachua County 4-H program is part of the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences at the University of Florida and is a program where young people learn by doing through programs such as the Alachua County Youth Fair and 4-H after-school programs. 4-H members also participate in projects such as science and technology, consumer education, horticulture, aerospace, entomology, public speaking, and animal sciences to develop leadership, citizenship, and other life skills. And whereas the Alachua County 4-H program has been extremely active in different community service areas such as annual food drives during the holidays, collecting stamps to help fund Habitat for Humanity house construction, Heifer International, annual holiday toy drives, and many other community service projects. And whereas the Alachua County youth have excelled on a club, county, district, state, and national level, with members participating in state 4-H legislature, 4-H University, Southern Region Teen Leadership Forum, as well as competed in the state contests of forest ecology, entomology, livestock judging, horse judging, dairy judging, marine ecology judging, and public speaking. And whereas Alachua County encourages the people of this community to take the opportunity to become more aware of this special program and to join us in recognizing the unique partnership between our city, our county, and our university system. Thank you, the commissioners, for having me and the community for all your support.
Thank you. You did a great job reading that. Does the commission have any questions for the young lady? Madam President, Commissioner Herson?
No question, but I'd like to congratulate you guys for coming before the city commission. I was a 4-H'er all the way through school whenever I started. It was a long time ago. But those 4-H projects helped put me through college. So it is a great organization to be a part of and can set a great foundation for you as you move forward. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job. Any other commissioners? And as a reward for reading that so well, you did not have to stay here to the end of the meeting. Good job. Thank you, 4-H.
Thank you,
We
guys.
appreciate you coming. Do we have any other public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to our presentations. Our first presentation is the 1/2 cent sales tax. Welcome.
Good evening.
It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Mayor Marlowe and Commissioners, for allowing us to come and speak to you tonight. My name is April Griffin. I am currently one of your school board members, but tonight I'm here to give you a little bit information on our 1/2 cent sales tax. And before I begin, I wanted to introduce the other people to you that are here with me tonight just to show you how important this is to the schools. We have Tom Cowart, who's the director of our facilities. Second row, Ms. Perlman is the principal at Newberry Elementary School. Mr. Armstrong, principal at Oakview Middle School. Mr. Shepard, principal at Newberry High School. Mr. Purvis, who is currently our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, but he was the principal at Newberry High School.
And an assistant football coach. I saw him down there.
Oh.
Yes.
I don't know if that's part of his duties or not. Then we have Brian Eastman and Conlon Banco, and Conlon is currently the treasurer of Citizens for Strong Schools, who is the citizen group that is running the campaign for us. So we have, just going to tell you a little bit about the campaign and some of our needs. And I have to push the green button and then. So
Yeah.
one of the things we want to do is create schools of the future here in Alachua County. Oops.
Technical difficulties. We'll get you right back on track.
Okay.
Our clicker gives everybody trouble. Don't worry.
Well,
it's not
good.
just you.
And I'm glad I'm not alone in this. I'm going to go ahead and talk. We have district-wide needs that, if you have been in the schools in Newberry, are indicative of new schools around the district. We would like to modernize, replace, renovate, and remodel our outdated facilities. Some of our roofs and HVAC system are way past their life expectancy. We have to go on eBay sometimes for our HVAC repairs. Capacity, which is very important to Newberry. We want to build new space and eliminate the portables. And if you talk to Principal Perlman, you will see that that would be a wonderful thing for Newberry Elementary School and for all the schools. The average district age is 34 years, but if you weight it by square footage and use, it's 41 years old. So our number one goal is to revitalize our existing schools, schools that already exist. This is a picture of elementary classrooms of the future. We want to modernize not only the space, but the teaching and learning that goes on in these spaces. Some people are wondering how we got in this fix. So this is a graph that shows in 2006-07, our funding for capital needs was almost $40 million. And the red shows the decline in those funds over the years. So if you add up all of the red spaces, it's $168 million of funding that has not come to our district. We're not back up to the 2008 level, which is when the recession hit. So we have a big funding loss in our district, and we're not alone. This is not conducive just to Alachua County. So we've asked for a sales tax referendum, a half-cent sales tax for 12 years. It's going to be on the ballot in November. I think some of my colleagues are passing out some information. All of the revenue generated will stay right here in Alachua County and be used in our schools. It's going to generate around $22 million a year. Now, if the Gators keep going, it will generate more. 25 to 35% of that is going to be paid by out-of-county visitors. Some here to Newberry, to the sports complex and the Field of Dreams. That's not Nations Park.
Field of Dreams, that's
Okay,
appropriate.
Field of Dreams. Okay. Transparency is a very big part of this whole sales initiative. We have a project list that's based on community input and expert review of the facilities. We had someone that came in and looked at all of our facilities and told us which buildings the government, the state, would let us raise and which we had to fix instead of starting over. We're going to have an oversight committee that's going to review all of the expenditures, much like the One Mill Committee. And we will still have to do all of the local audits, state and local. And we always pass those with no findings. So we're not afraid of people looking at our books. The cost of the sales tax for the average family that lives in Alachua County is going to be about $5 a month. So it's not that big of an expense per family. The sales tax in the surrounding counties are all at 7%. We would be boosting ours up to 7%, so we'd be right in line with all the counties that surround us. Now a little bit about what proposed for your schools in Newberry. We've done this sheet for every school, and you can have, if you wanted to know about all the schools, it's on our website. Newberry Elementary School was built in 1974. Since 2000, we spent almost $7 million renovating. We did a big project there this summer, moved everybody out and did a lot of updating with the HVAC systems. What we would like to do is security improvements. We would like to build a new 14 classroom building, renovate and modernize 18 existing classrooms, renovate and modernize the media center, and expand the food service and multi-purpose facilities. So the projected expenditure will be around $9 million for Newberry Elementary School. For Oakview Middle, it was built in
Schoolmember Griffin, before you move on, that, the food center, do you know what time kids at the elementary school start eating lunch?
9:54
9:54,
at Newberry Elementary School.
because that,
Oh, because we can't fit all of enough students in. This space isn't big enough for the students that are on campus.
okay.
That's one of the things for many of our schools were built for a certain number of students, and it's not just the classroom space. You can put portables on to add classroom space, but it's the libraries and the media center, the multi-purpose rooms and the cafeterias that we're seeing need to be expanded. Thank you. Oakview Middle School was built in 1994, and since 2000 we spent about $2.21 million on Oakview. The proposed project security improvements, a new 15 classroom building. If you don't know, Oakview has 5th through 8th grade. It's our only middle school that includes 5th graders currently. High Springs is K through 8, so it's a little bit different. Renovate and modernize 33 existing classrooms and the media center, and it's going to be around $9.1 million. And then Newberry High School was built in 1953. The facility spent on Newberry High School is about $7 million, and these are the things we'd like to do. Again, security improvements, new classrooms, renovate existing classrooms, a media center, cafeteria, music area. And one of the existing classrooms to be modernized at Newberry High School is a science lab. What we found is their science labs across the district are woefully they're not adequate for the coursework that's being done in them. So we're about $14 million at Newberry High School. If you have any questions of the principals or anybody that's here, we'll be glad to ask for questions now. We did hand out some materials for the half-cent sales tax, and especially the sheet that deals with Newberry and what is proposed. And one thing I will say, the security improvements, in light of what happened last year with Parkland, the state mandated that we have security improvements to all of our schools. We don't know what that means yet. The Department of Education hasn't given us a list, but we know that that's coming, and we feel like it's really important to make sure that the kids are safe and the learning environments are conducive to the best learning for our students. They deserve it.
And I'm sure the state sent money right along with all of those mandates.
Well, no, they didn't send enough. All of the money that they sent for our security improvements went to pay for the law enforcement that was required to be in every school.
Okay.
So.
All right. Does the commission have any questions for School Board Member Griffin or for any of the folks who have come here tonight? Commissioner Hurston?
April, with the construction of the new classroom buildings at all three of the schools, will that eliminate the portable buildings?
Yes, sir. The purpose of renovating and remodeling and building new classroom spaces to get rid of the portables. For portables, not only, it costs, how much to move the portables? Like $25,000 each to move them and set them up each year. So, and we rent some of them. We don't own all of the portables that we're using. So we would like to replace those.
Yeah, having kids that were educated in all three schools, all of them being in portable buildings, it would be a nice change to get them out of those.
Thank you.
Commissioner Glanzer?
I just want to say I support the half-cent sales tax. The thing that shocked me most is I've been listening to this over the campaign is that there's no plan B. If we don't do this, our schools are going to continue to deteriorate, and at $5 a month, I think that's a small price to pay for the us to do.
Thank you. Yes, the Plan B would be to continue like we have been, which is to repair as needed.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
Don't you already get a sales tax?
We have currently a millage, a 1 mil that funds our, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it funds our classrooms, it funds our band, art, music programs, it funds technology, and all of the infrastructure that our classrooms need for technology. One of the things that the state did a couple of years ago was it mandated that every kid to graduate high school had to take an online class. Well, some of our students don't have internet at home, so we have to provide them a space and a computer and all the technology at our campuses to fulfill that requirement. And also with testing, I know Mayor Marlowe can tell you what it's like during testing season, especially at a high school, running through the computer labs. So that's the 1 mil.
So you guys get a 1 mil additional tax. We're already paying a large amount of taxes, and our property taxes already. And you need a 1/2 cent sales tax. The city of Newberry pays for the resource officers at our schools. I don't know that you guys don't have a money management problem more than you have an additional need for money.
Well, Commissioner Farnsworth, I'd be glad to let you look at our books and talk to our CFO, our Chief Financial Officer, about that. But as I showed you on the slide, and I don't know if I can get back to it, when you're dealing with $168 million decreased spending, funding, a funding loss of $168 million.
What was the cause of
There's,
that?
well, the state. We get our capital money from the state from 2 ways. One from the state, the other one is the 2 mills that we were able to levy taxes, and the state limited that to 1.5 mills, and it has caused this funding loss.
Well, I'll tell you, I will support you for your reelection, but I will not support the sales tax.
Well, it's too late for the reelection, but I appreciate that.
I did support you for the reelection.
Well, thank you very much. I think that what people need to realize first is to go to a school, go to Newberry Elementary School and look past the first building and see all of the portables lined up. But that's not just there. It's everywhere in our county. And we've done the best we can. We have a phenomenal facilities department that works to counter and correct things as they come up. But we're at a place now where to make the improvements that we need to for the teaching and learning that needs to go on in our county for our students, we need this 1/2 cent sales tax. And I think that we put it off. And that's one thing that I think that you could blame us for, is not asking for it sooner.
And the 1 mil, that was for how many years?
The 1 mil is every 4 years.
And that gets we have to re-vote on that every 4 years?
Yes, sir. This is for 12 years.
And that seems to be the money you guys get seems to be a perpetual thing. It doesn't never seem to be enough.
Well, no, I'm sure that your city government would think that the money that you get is never enough either.
Yeah, but we maintain our budget, and we don't continue to raise our millage rate in order to...
Well, one other thing that I will say about school finance is that the legislature limits what we can leverage every year. So we don't only have the capital funds that we've lost by not being able to leverage the 2 mills. We also have the local effort that they have mandated not even be at the rollback. So for the past 2 years, we haven't been able to charge the taxes to get the same rate that we got the year before. So we're on a little bit different, and when y'all get talking about the amendment coming up that would increase the homestead, I think that you'll see that the state is not playing well with local governments these days, and I don't see that changing anytime in the future. So I appreciate your comments, and honestly, if you'd like to talk to our Alex Rella is his name, our CFO, I'm sure he would be glad to answer any of your questions.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments from the dais? Does the public have any questions or comments about the 1/2 cent sales tax?
Y'all got to look at my best side the whole time I talked.
Ms. Graham, I would just say I appreciate that this is a sales tax. I think that distributes the cost in the best way possible to get some folks that are coming in to visit us to pay for some of these things. It's a good parallel. We're going to be facing the same issue with the homestead exemption, which I believe will most certainly pass, and that's how we get funded, and we might be looking at a chart similar to that.
We're working for it not to get passed.
And so, when you lose revenue out of
Yep.
one, you got to look for revenue out of a different, or you got to cut services that most folks don't want you to cut,
Well, and there's a lot of things
So-
that go in schools that we can't cut. We're bound to do, that are unfunded.
All those mandates.
Yes,
I
sir.
love those unfunded
Yes, sir.
mandates. Does anybody have any other questions for, we got a lot of the principals here, a lot of the folks who can answer any questions. If you're curious about this half-cent sales tax, and how is your chance to get it straight from the source?
I invite anyone from the city commission who would like to come out to our school.
Could you come up here, Madam President? I'm sorry, especially with, I did a lot of yelling at the football game this weekend, at both of them actually, and we got to be careful because not everybody on the dais here tonight has something to celebrate from Saturday. But the Gator fans, we did an awful lot of yelling. The Panther fans did an awful lot of
My
yelling.
husband's a little upset about all my screaming, as you can tell. But I want to just invite anyone on the city commission. I know several of you have had children at our school. If you'd like to come out and take a tour of the facilities, and I'd be happy to talk with anybody about the funds that I've spent out of school-based funds for security this year, for extra cameras and things like that to make sure that the school is safe, and other kinds of expenses that we have at a school site level, or that we are trying to work on to get to take care of our growing population in a very small, finite space, as well as the other kinds of things that come down the line that you think of for the future of our students and what would be good. And I think about what our facilities are in need of and how this sales tax could really support our schools, and making sure that we're not always having to pick and choose between a triage of what is the most important thing to do right now because children don't have air conditioning in their classrooms versus making improvements to a media center for the future and those kinds of things. So anyone on the commission that would like to come out, I'd be happy to take you on a tour.
Be great to visit elementary school about 7:30 in the morning, especially when a train comes through.
Yes.
That's an added benefit. So.
That is when it's raining.
Or when it's
When it's
raining,
raining.
check that out. So,
So,
thank you. We appreciate it. Any other questions or comments for any of the school board officials who are here?
I just have a
Could you
comment.
introduce yourself to us?
I'm sorry. My name is Conlin Banco. I'm the treasurer of the Citizens for Strong Schools. I'm a parent of 4 public school children in Alachua County. And I don't work for the school district. I'm actually an accountant by trade and a business owner. I've been looking at this situation now for about 3 years through my work with the PTA and now with this advocacy group. And I can tell you that particularly with capital outlay, it's also the same with operations. This is a top-line revenue issue. It's that chart. That's the problem. This is not a mismanagement issue at all. If it were not for the management, the proper management of the funds in our facilities department, we would not have schools as safe as they are right now. I'm sorry. And I think it is because of the work of our facilities folks and how they are good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, that they are able to continue to patch and to make sure that our children are at least in a safe environment. They have not been able to keep up with the growth. And the main reason why is that chart that you just saw up there, the $168 million of lost revenue. If that happened in my business, it would mean layoff of employees. We'd probably be shutting down some parts of our warehouse. You can't shut down all of these schools. So, and also, you can't move operations over to capital outlay. They're 2 separate pots of money. But that's all I had to say tonight. I thank you all for your support, and thank you for letting us present.
We appreciate it. We do really appreciate everybody coming out tonight to educate us on what this would go towards, how long it would be, to give us the project list. I think it is all about education so folks can know at home who are watching what they're voting on, whether they're voting yay or nay, what's going to happen because of it. So I appreciate all your time. If there's no further questions for School Board Member Griffin or anybody else here, I know a lot of folks here are here to listen to this agenda item, so we'll give a little bit of time for those folks. You also have earned not having to stay till the end of the meeting tonight.
I have sausage gravy
Sure.
at home waiting for me. so.
Yes, yes.
I got one more question.
Oh, Commissioner Herson.
So some of those dollar amounts you've outlined for the Newberry schools, are those proposed dollar amounts committed or proportion of that sales tax committed? I asked that if Newberry votes for this, will we get that kind of funding, or will it get redirected back into Gainesville based on the population center and the loudest voice?
That's a good question, thank you. Superintendent has mandated that within the first 5 years after the tax is passed, there will be something happen on every campus in our school district. And Mr. Cowart can maybe comment more to the order of things, but those are the top things that we would like to see happen in Newberry.
Tom Coward here. I'm the Director of Construction and Maintenance for the school board. The way this is being set up is each school will have a budget based on the needs. And believe me, we went through an awful lot to get to that dollar amount. We started out with like $640 million worth of needs throughout and had to get it down to $400 million. Each school will have that dollar amount set, and that will be the budget. We will not take money from one school to support something at the other school. If something comes up, each individual will support itself. That's the plans. We're not sharing these dollars. Is that?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate you guys making the drive out here tonight. Thank you all for your time and your comments. And we will move now to the Public Power Week, FMPA. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Marlowe and Commissioners. Jacob Williams with FMPA. I just wanted to come here to congratulate you all on Public Power Week and really offer, after listening to that discussion, maybe a positive that can help solve some of these problems in a small way. And we'll get into that right away. First of all, a quick reminder of FMPA. We have 31 member cities, of which you are one of the members, and obviously everyone knows that Bill Conrad is our board chairman and has been that for a number of years, 4 or 5 years, 6 years now. And a delight to have an outstanding board chairman who's done a great job. We say 31 members, and as of a week from now, we'll probably have our 32nd member being the city of Tallahassee. Will join FMPA. It serves roughly 10% of the state of Florida in terms of electric customers, so around 2 million Floridians get their electricity from one of these 31 entities. Whoops, hold on here, a little too fast here. Okay, right there. Real quick, the power that you all get, 80% of that electricity comes from natural gas generation. 15% comes from the coal plant, the Stanton coal plant down in the Orlando area, and about 5% comes from the Port St. Lucie nuclear plant. You can see our generation facilities there. The major ones that we operate, our member cities operate, is the Cane Island unit, which is operated by Kissimmee Utilities. That's our largest facility of big gas units down there. And then down at Treasure Coast, Fort Pierce. They operate a large gas unit. Then you see our joint ownership in Stanton, St. Lucie, and then we have plants down at Key West on Stock Island generation. Okay, let's see here. All right, whoops, this is touchy. You're right.
Gives everybody fits.
Okay, hold on here. We'll get to the right one. Come on. Anyway,
You can also just wave at the back and they'll advance
if
for
you
you.
can roll the next slide, please. Thank you.
Just raise your hand.
There you go. Great. Like the discussion that was just had, price of electricity is real important because what you spend on electricity can't be spent on schools, education, healthcare, medicine, etc. The added thing that FMPA has, this is a chart of the average income for families in the United States, Florida, the municipals in the state, the municipal electric utilities, and Newberry proper, as well as some of our other municipals. One thing that's true about the municipal electric utilities is they tend to serve lower income communities. 27 of our 30 three municipal utilities serves below average incomes in the state of Florida. So our cities and the citizens care what the price of electricity is. These aren't the high-end communities outside of, say, Key West and Jacksonville Beach. We don't have a lot of high-end communities. We have a lot of Central Florida and what they'd say is Old Florida. The other thing to know, if you can flip to the next slide, an interesting thing about Florida, Floridians use twice as much electricity as does citizens in California, the other sunshine state, or in the Northeast. And why is that? It's hot and humid all the time, right? AC, it's all about the AC. As a result of using a lot of electricity, Floridians take that with our large fixed income community in low income. There's as much as almost a third of the Floridians pay 10% of their disposable income to pay the electric bill. What you all do, what we do, really matters to your customers, and we've talked about that before. Next slide. As a result, we've put a lot of emphasis on bringing prices down for electricity, and I know back a decade ago when Mayor Bill stepped onto the FMPA board, and his number one thing was solve the high electricity price thing. Well, he's done a pretty good job, because right now the rates have dropped about 27% since 2008, the rates from FMPA to Newberry. This year, we've got the estimate up there of being $73.93 a megawatt hour. Actually, I got the estimate for the end of the year, and it's going to be 73 or maybe even 72 handle. So it'll be one of the lowest cost years in the last 10 years, and we're driving costs down, which means it allows you all to be in a good position to do things. As a result, if we go to the next slide, our rates compared to the large investor-owned utilities in the region, FPL and Duke, we're now equal to or below the average, and when we run out to 17 and then 2018, we'll probably be below even FPL in terms of rates. So big steps are taken forward, which translates, if we go to the next slide, to looking at, that's the wholesale price. So if we jump to the next slide, thank you. Newberry's pricing for calendar year 2017 for an average residence which uses 1,200 kilowatts a month, the average bill is around $140 a megawatt hour. That's very much in line with the local utilities here, Clay Co-op, Duke, and Central Florida Co-op. If you look at 2018, because there was a drop in price from FMPA, you're actually going to be below even Clay. So you're going to be moving into as competitive or lower than any other retail provider in the area. Excuse me. So we want to continue to press forward to bring those prices even down further. I know that has allowed you for the first time, I think you had a small increase to actually spend some money on some capital, much needed capital to run your facilities. To help us get those rates as low, we took about $42 million out of the budget after we approved it last year, and we're successful in doing that, and that's why the rates were originally set to be almost $80 and ended up at $73 a megawatt hour, because we took $43 million out of the budget. And this next year, we're looking at a number of large savings as well that are looking to pass through. We know rates are focused. Besides rates, if you could put to the next slide, know that the big thing for keeping low-cost power is our three big facilities at Treasure Coast and Cane Island. There are low-cost power plants, and they are extremely well run. The big thing about these low-cost plants is you want to keep them up and running because they're the lowest cost. The industry average is 85% availability. Those plants run at 93% availability last year on average. So 8 percentage points better. That means we get 8% more power than you would have expected out of the lowest cost plants that we have in the fleet. So the teams that run them at KUA, at Kissimmee, and Fort Pierce have done a great job. Next slide, please. The last part in the puzzle at the FMPA level is emissions. Our emissions from our facilities are extremely low compared to the facilities in the United States or Florida, where our emission rates are 60 to 80% below the U.S. average. They're anywhere from, call it 25 to 50% below the average plants in Florida. We've got clean air in the state. Part of the reasons is facilities like these are very low emitting. And as a result, Florida has 7 of the top 25 metropolitan cleanest areas in the country from air quality standpoint, including areas right here in this region. Last thing I'll mention on FMPA is supporting our members. We're doing a number of things. One of them very much is directed specifically at Newberry, where we're assisting Mike and team on the AMI project that you all are in the middle of, helping out and working with the city's owner's engineer to develop a scope of project, selecting owner's engineer, and going through an RFP process. So that's a bit about what FMPA is doing, but how does that turn into value for the city? Because that's really what you asked. So if we could skip another slide forward. This electric utility provides great value to the city of Newberry. And you think about it, the electric utility only serves about half of the city. The other half is actually served by other utilities. So if you doubled this, you'd get quite a bit more benefit. But the utility provides around $600,000 a year in annual benefit back to the city in several ways. There's a city transfer that goes on. That was around $214,000 on an annual basis. The local employment, you have 8.5 employees here that essentially works for the electric utility. If you don't own this electric utility, there are 0 employees that will stay here, and they'll be working in some other community. That economic benefit of their wages being spent here is a great multiplier effect for the city. The next thing which we talk about is your local line crews allow you to respond to outages. We'll talk about that in a minute with Hurricane Michael in the area. You may see that again. And then finally, some of the other transfers. We talked about city transfers. We talked about the local employment and how that adds value, because those dollars are spent here. They're not only spent here once. The businesses that then get it spend it again and again. So that's a great thing. Next slide. We talked about this, I think. Oops, go back one if we could, please. If you remember Irma, I think we talked about it last year. You had the great thing that on average municipal utilities restored power in the community 1 to 2 days faster than did the other utilities in the state. That was true here in Newberry as well. You were a day to 2 days faster than the other utilities in the county, just because you've got people locally here who can get to the wires and get them up and going quickly. If you go to the next slide, it's not only in emergency responses, it's just in day-to-day operation. If you look at Newberry's outage records, how long an average outage is, how long an average customer sees an outage, or system response time, Newberry's outage rates are far lower than Duke Energy Florida, your neighboring large IOU. Essentially anywhere from twice as fast to slightly faster, but you've got lower outage lengths and better response time. That actually turns into value in terms of real value to the customers. So, and we'll see that again. I know I was filling up with everybody else, it seemed like, getting some more gas, and one of the guys said he lives out in the county, and he says he's the last customer in, and he says it's going to be 5 days if anything happens here. Of course, you all don't take that long. I guess the last thing I'll mention in passing, if we want to flip forward, is, again, the community benefit that you all have in terms of local support. There are a number of activities that utility contributes to. There's also some shared services that the utility pays for. You have a great value in this utility in that it's something that transfers true economic value in terms of the budget, but as well in terms of other activity that goes on. We're working hard to continue to lower rates so that lower rates will allow people to essentially absorb a little bit of a property tax or a school fund increase. It also will lower the electricity prices to the schools itself. So, those are all things that can help, and we're proud to be working hard because we know price of electricity is really important to everybody here, and we want to work hard to keep doing that. So with that, I'll stand for any questions, and if nothing else, celebrate the job that Mike and the team are doing here in town.
Well, we appreciate the presentation you just gave and the job that you guys are doing, because there was a lot of great news on a lot of different slides up there, and a lot of those slides would have been very, very different 10 years ago. So I love the average outage slide. I'm going to make sure we get that information out, because that was a huge deal in the city of Newberry a while ago, the blips we called them, and the time that it gets back. I know that we got a lot of praise after Irma. That goes to our utility department. Those guys were out there. They were on top of it. and they had us back up and running. So we appreciate you guys and what y'all are doing down there, because it does trickle down to us, and it's not a trickle. So with that, does the board have any questions? Commissioner Farnsworth.
You had mentioned a couple of the plants that were very efficient in their operation. What about the nuclear plant? Is it efficient, or does it have to be supplemented?
The nuclear plant, the St. Lucie nuclear plant, is a well-run nuclear plant. It is older, and one of the nice things about it is we're about ready to pay all the debt off on the nuclear plant. We're about 6 years away from paying all the debt off on that, and it will become even a lower-cost resource because the debt will be paid off. It's a well-run plant. It operates at around 90% availability, so it does a very nice job.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the board? No? All right. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Williams touched on the AMI project that they are assisting us on. I would just, and I had this conversation with him last night, the level of support we are getting from FMPA in assisting us in selecting an owner's engineer and developing our RFP document is really unparalleled. They are doing a yeoman's task. I'm excited about it. Our board will be making decisions on selecting engineering firms and then contractors towards the end of this year, and then hopefully in the first quarter of next year. We got our first bid proposals back Friday for engineers representatives. So, we will save quite a bit of money by having FMPA develop our RFP. That's probably worth more than $100,000 to the city of Newberry. So they really benefit us in a number of ways, and it's just pick up the phone and ask, and they always seem to answer that request.
Well, I wasn't going to let you get out of here without thanking you for the AMI help either. It's tremendous. We got a lot of commissioners who are very, very interested in it. For those of you sitting in the audience, AMI, tell me exactly what it stands for so I don't get that wrong. Advanced Metering.
It's Advanced Metering Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. And basically, there's going to be a lot of exciting things that you as the customer can do with AMI, but there's also a lot of exciting things that we can do on our end. All of them will be geared towards helping empower the resident to save money. And it'll certainly empower us to save money as well. So we're looking forward to passing that along. It's not something that a city our size usually engages in, so it's another way that City of Newberry is being forward-thinking and moving ahead. And we certainly appreciate y'all's help and guidance, because while AMI is very exciting, it's also very treacherous. There's lots of ways you can go wrong. So we appreciate your expertise and the expertise of FMPA in helping us through that. So does the public have any questions while we have Mayor Conrad here and we have the top guy from FMPA? You got any questions? Now's your chance. You've got a lot of bigwigs in the audience tonight. Hearing none, we appreciate your time, sir. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill, for being here. And Dallas, will you come take us through Amendment 1? We have lots to learn about Amendment 1. So I hope you're ready for some hard-hitting questions, minute, accountant-level questions.
All the legal implications as well. Mr. Mayor and City Commissioners, we're going to begin with a YouTube video that Florida League of Cities has produced.
It's a tax shift. Most of the benefits go to a
Can we rewind it?
While most of the burden goes to the rest of us.
Amy, can we just pause it, go all the way back, and then maybe make it
should Florida's tax system work for every homeowner?
full screen?
Picking winners and losers simply isn't fair, and that's the problem with the
Third time's the charm.
Third time is the charm. We get it full screen from the beginning. Whenever you're ready, Miss Amy.
Should Florida's tax system work for every homeowner, or just a few? Picking winners and losers simply isn't fair, and that's the problem with Amendment 1. Amendment 1 isn't a tax cut, it's a tax shift. Most of the benefits go to a handful of homeowners, while most of the burden goes to the rest of us. Here's what Amendment 1's tax shift does. A handful of homeowners pay less. To make up the difference, the rest of us pay more. For most Floridians, Amendment 1 means a bigger share of the tax burden, fewer local services, or higher local property taxes. Basically, Amendment 1 gives these rulers a break, while the rest of us row harder. Amendment 1 doesn't fix Florida's tax scheme. It makes it worse, more complicated, and less fair. Amendment 1. Some win, most lose.
All right, Dallas, if you could explain why that is.
I will do my
Oh,
best.
we have another video?
No, we have a PowerPoint though.
Ah, okay.
To preface all this is all from the Florida League of Cities. This is all their point of view, not the city or city staff's. So the PowerPoint was created by Florida League of Cities, and then what I'm going to read is from Florida League of Cities as well. So this fall, voters will be asked to decide the fate of a proposed constitutional amendment called Amendment 1. Amendment 1 was made to sound like a tax cut, but in reality it's a tax shift. A handful of homeowners will benefit, and the rest will pay for it, including homeowners right here in the city of Newberry. That's the ballot language. This amendment would deliver the most benefit to homes valued between $100,000 and $125,000. Everyone else could face a higher share of the tax burden, as well as the risk of local property tax hikes. Many people believe that Florida's tax system should work for all homeowners and not just a few. However, Amendment 1 picks winners and losers. Most of the benefits of Amendment 1 will go to less than 1/4 of Florida properties. The chosen homeowners would save about $275 per year, according to the amendment sponsor. What about people in more expensive homes or more modest ones? They would see little benefit, and many could face property tax hikes to subsidize the chosen few. What about small business owners or pet stores and dry cleaners, retailers and restaurants? For them, Amendment 1 is a double whammy. Besides the bigger share of the tax burden we've already talked about, the amendment exposes these job creators to bigger tax hikes in the future, because a business's taxable value rises faster than that of a home. That's bad for business and bad for Florida's economy. And what about renters? They should expect to pay more too, because landlords will pass along their bigger share of the property tax burden to their tenants. Not to mention the huge dip in local government revenues. If Amendment 1 passes, local governments will have two choices: cut vital services or raise local taxes. Worse still, Tallahassee politicians who devised this scheme knew exactly what they were doing. When asked how local communities were supposed to pay for Amendment 1, the sponsor put it plainly: raise your millage. So Amendment 1 is like giving away free coffee, but charging $5 for the cup. Even if communities don't raise taxes, the people making up the smaller tax base, that's most of you, would still bear a larger and unfair burden in making our community work. Let's face it, Florida's tax system is a complicated mess. Amendment 1 wouldn't fix that. It would only make the system worse, more complicated, and less fair for business owners and working families. If you remember one thing and nothing else, remember these three things. 1, Amendment 1 picks winners and losers. Amendment 1 could mean higher taxes for millions of Floridians. And 3, Amendment 1 doesn't fix Florida's tax system. Lastly, I want to leave you with one final thought. Home rule isn't simply a technical term of art. It's the animating principle of our national experiment, and it's essential to the health of our republic. Decisions made by individual communities tend to be the consensus decisions because they reflect the broadly shared values of that community. The further away a decision is made, the greater the chance it will spark anger. And there's already too much anger in our politics. We can't sustain a system of government if aggrieved parties are constantly marching on distant capitals to right wrongs and avenge ills done to them by the other side. Our republic will not endure a system of grievance government in which the losing side feels forever underrepresented. This solution isn't more laws from Washington and Tallahassee, it's less. The solution is local leadership, local decisions, local consensus, and local control. Home rule is a basic principle of Florida government. It's spelled out in our Constitution. It means we trust local communities to set their own priorities and decide how to pay for them. Amendment 1 violates this principle. If the politicians in Tallahassee want to cut taxes for less than 1/4 of the properties, they should do it the old-fashioned way, by cutting their own spending. Instead, they devised a one-size-fits-all scheme that picks winners and losers. And then it says to vote on one, but I'm not going to say that.
If you can't work the clicker, Dallas, then nobody is. It's
Earlier I was thinking, well, clearly they don't know what they're doing, but now I concede it's the clicker.
okay.
That's my presentation.
The presentation. Does the commission have any questions for Dallas on Amendment 1? Commissioner Glanzer?
I don't think Dallas can answer this, but I want to know how the state thinks we're going to pay for our budgets without that, if that passes.
In the words of the amendment sponsor, raise your millage.
Raise your millage. And what would that mean for, say, Newberry? Did you give us a dollar amount that we're going to lose?
According to the 2018 numbers, we would lose approximately $150,000 a year, which would require us to raise our millage by more than 0.3 mils.
And we're at now 5.99999.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Farnsworth?
Do you know what percentage of homes are valued less than $100,000 in Newberry?
No, sir, not off the top of my head.
Okay, one of the problems I have is we have no problem charging people less than $100,000 a fire assessment fee, and charge the people that own homes are $250,000 the same fee. So, are we like doing the same thing this Amendment 1's doing, charging people with lesser income the same amount as we're charging the people that have better income?
I think in the presentation, the point is that if your home is under 100,000 or under, you would not receive a benefit. You'll end up paying more under this. So it'd be the reverse of what you just said. This one would, if you do everything by fees, at least everybody is an equal share and everyone can track the money.
But
in this one, it gets very confusing. And for under 100,000, you're actually going to pay a greater portion of the burden.
I'm just saying that the people that with less income are paying the same amount as the people with higher income. So that's all.
Commission have any other questions or comments about Amendment 1? Okay, does the public have any questions or comments about Amendment 1? I know there was a lot in that presentation and it can get a little confusing, so if you want a clarification, Dallas is probably the best, especially when it comes to millage rates and 100, under 125, what that means. It's kind of a strange niche to carve out.
I mean, it can't be any clearer than it's a tax shift if we're going to have to raise the millage rate to cover our budget. So, we're still having to pay the money. It just comes, at a different name, with a different name, seems to me.
Commissioner.
And do I understand this correctly? We're at 5.9999 mils, and we do not have the 0.3 cap space in our millage rate, correct?
Mr. Mayor, no, sir. The City Commission has the authority to go to 10 mils under its state authority.
Okay.
Okay. Hearing no further questions or comments, thank you, Dallas, for educating us about Amendment 1. We will move on to a presentation from the concerned citizens of Newberry. Ms. Judy, will you join us down here at the podium? Thank you for waiting through all of that. You came on a good night to hear about a lot of different issues going on.
Yes. Okay, Judy Hassan Lewis. Good evening to the mayor and commissioners and everybody on the board. I think I have a few issues, and I'm going to start with the ones that I think would take less attention or less time.
Ms. Judy, do you have a PowerPoint or anything that's going on with that?
No, sir, I don't have a PowerPoint.
Just making sure we weren't waiting.
No, just word of just my mouth. That's what it is. So, Concerned Citizens, we are a community-based nonprofit organization, and one of the things that we do is we identify deficits within the community, and then we come up with different plans and actions to address those deficits. So, one of our big things is affordable housing. a lot of people in the community are economically challenged, and we have not so much a basis for people even really getting jobs here. Whatever's just lacking. There are a lot of deficits in the area. So when we started looking at the affordable housing issue, we actually started looking at being able to put manufactured homes in the neighborhood, where we ran across some issues in a certain area that we think we want to talk about later because of the zoning. But the first thing, we had a meeting in, I think it was August, late July, where we talked about reconciliation and opening up dialogue and stuff with the county and addressing that issue. And so the group that was there, the majority of the group, decided that it's something that we wanted to participate in, and that we would come to the commission and ask them to support that project. It's not detailed, it's not outlined. We want to open up the dialogue, we want to get the process started, we want to start working on our local history as well as national stuff, doing a lot of stuff around that. So that's the first thing I'd like for the commission to consider, is being supportive of that county project, actually.
Can I get a head nod on that one before we move on? But I think what the concerned citizens, they're just asking for a public declaration.
Yeah, we want it to be official. Okay.
All right. Absolutely. We are 100% behind. We are supportive, and we look forward to working. I know you and I have talked about a couple of ideas, and we're ready to get to it. So.
Okay, so
that was a universal head nod.
Universal
yes, ma'am.
Head count on that. Okay, affordable housing. The broad subject is we don't have any in our neighborhood. It is the historical area of our city. It's been there for years. There are structures there that have a lot of sentimental value to the people that live there, to the property owners. Manufactured homes are more affordable than trying to have people build up from the ground. The area that we are talking about, there are manufactured homes throughout the area. There's throughout. It's just this one strip between Northwest 6th Avenue and Northwest 2nd Avenue. One block in, that is prohibiting you from putting manufactured homes there. And we'd like to get an explanation to why that is. I'd like to know, when was the zoning guidelines set up? Who participated in the process? Did anybody in the community have any input in this zoning process, the guidelines that were set up? I would just like to know.
We can ask staff to respond to those questions, but I don't want to take away from your presentation time. The answers there might get extensive in terms of how far back when that map was created and those kind of things. Did you want to spend some time doing that, or do you want to make your presentation first and then ask questions at the end? So we do 15 minutes for presentation, so I can write down those questions, and then at the end of the presentation we can go back and kind of go through
and go over
the questions. That way we don't lose the flow of the presentation.
Okay, so those questions, where did I stop? Where were the citizens involved? I was told that existing structures, if by some reason they were destroyed by some hazard or whatever, right now, those places could not be replaced. if anything, that's what I was told, that if
I'll add that to the list of questions.
If Irma
we'll
or somebody came through and they destroyed my house, I wouldn't be able to put a manufactured home there because of the way the guidelines are
right.
now.
You have a brick and mortar home, and the question
Well, I
is
have
if
a
it
wood
was
frame
right.
home.
Yeah. So you have a built home. If that was
Yes.
destroyed, would you be able to come in? So we'll add that to our list of questions.
Can they come in and get that done? Same thing with the structures that's on the strip that's commercial. So if those homes, something happened to them, that those people would not be able to put
manufactured homes in to replace.
Not even anything. It'd have to be commercial, is what I was told.
Oh, that's right. You had a strip that was commercial.
Yeah,
Right.
that was commercial.
Commercial strip. We may, Ms. Judy, there's a lot of these questions are about specific strips, and I'm not sure if staff can pull up maps that would be able to show, because we're going to get lost in trying to know which parcels we're talking about. So maybe if Brian is in the back, maybe he can be.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we're not prepared to respond to these questions tonight. I think that most of the questions have been responded to. If you're, depending on your zoning district, if you're in a zoning district that does not permit mobile homes, if a structure is demolished for whatever reason, your zoning would not allow you to put a mobile home back replacing the site-built home. It would have to be replaced with a site-built home. And so the solution to that is to, if you want to put a mobile home in this, there's to seek rezoning. But rezoning is a consideration that would come before this board where staff would make a presentation on whether we recommend it. Zoning is kind of a citywide comprehensive thing, so we try to get like zoning categories together and make sure that overall that we have a complete inventory of all zoning types, so that if you want to be zoned in any particular, or you want to live in an area that's zoned a certain way, you can find it within our city. You may just not find it on the street that you wanted to live upon, things like that. But I think that we know all the answers to these, but not specifically at this meeting. That's more of a sit down with staff, and we'll get a map out, and we'll talk about all those things. We'll get our code out and talk about all those things.
Okay. So with what the city manager has just said is that these properties have been owned by these people for generations and generations. It has a lot of sentimental value. So to say, get up and move someplace else, that's not a feasible solution to what the problem is. I can't tell this property owner, oh, your grandmother worked hard and scuffled and struggled and got this. You paid for your land years and years ago now, move somewhere else just because of a zoning issue. When everybody, all the property owners, I have been in touch with all the property owners. I've gotten signatures and everything. Everybody in the neighborhood is in agreement with the zoning being changed. So I'm here tonight to ask the commission to do whatever it needs to be done to get this rezoning effort considered.
Well, Ms. Judy, we will, when you came before us before, the question was, can we lump all the property into one, because it was $1,800 or $1,600.
It was $1,700
per, so $1,700 per parcel, and we wanted to know if we lumped everybody together into one request, could we do it for $1,700? And staff said yes, and then the commission approved what staff had already offered to say yes. So at this point, really the only issue before this body can make a decision is you got to put in the application, and then that'll get you in front of the P&Z. And then it'll get you in front of these guys. So they can't make a decision until they get the application and can look at the information.
So it's my understanding that most likely the recommendation would not be to do.
Staff's recommendation
would be not to do it. So that's why I'm backing up. I think we put the cart before the horse. So I'm backing up, asking if the commission will make a decision to address this issue, and have the zoning done, and we want an explanation of what the $1,700 fee is for. What does it cover?
Well, there's two questions there. I would say first, the commission is certainly free to say how they would make a decision before they're given the information upon which they're supposed to make the decision. I think it's probably inappropriate for them to say how they would vote on something without going through the process. We have the process so that the P&Z would look at it and give a recommendation to the board. The staff would be able to look at the application, give a recommendation to the board, and then it would come to this body, and they would look at staff's recommendation, they look at P&Z's recommendation, they'd hear from you, they'd hear from the applicants, and after they get all that information, then they'd make a decision. So I'm not sure that, again, any commissioner is free to say whatever they would like to say, but to say how they would end up voting and whether they would support something before they go through that process, I would assume would be fairly inappropriate to do. So, you can put everybody together and apply, and then work through the process.
I'm not asking you to be inappropriate.
Right.
What I'm asking you to do is take the necessary steps that needs to be done for us to get this process rolling. If that means meeting with everybody, getting reports from whatever it means.
The only thing that needs to happen to get the ball rolling is for all of the citizens who want to rezone to put in an application. That's the only, and then that starts the P&Z.
So
and that
do we need
staff.
to do one application?
That's my
Can
understanding.
everybody do one? Can the entire group do one application?
My understanding is we've already established that.
Yes,
Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, we were going to treat it as one application. We will need all the appropriate information from
affidavits,
each parcel that is seeking rezoning. We need certain appropriate information, but in terms of how it is treated, it will be treated as one application with one application fee, and the entire package will move together. Whether it's 10 parcels or 12, it will move together as it goes before Planning and Zoning Board and then before the City Commission.
So you get, and that's what you and I were talking about. You get everybody who is determined that they want to do this to agree, and all they need to do is sign the affidavit that as the property owner, they are the one who is requesting the change of zoning. Then we can lump it all together into 1/1700. You guys apply at the Little Red Schoolhouse. That will get the ball rolling, and then you'll get it.
We already have papers where they have signed the affidavit for that. We already have.
Well, if we have them, then it's just about filling out the application. So once the application's in, that will start the ball rolling, and then you'll move forward as one, and you'll get the right to come in front of the Planning and Zoning, and you'll get the right to come in front of this board. As far as what the $1,700 go to, the bulk of that, and Brian is here, the manager might know better than I, but I know the bulk of that is advertising costs. We got to pay for newspapers. I think that's about $300 a pop to put it in a newspaper, and I think by state law we have to do 3 or 4. So the bulk of that, and then there's staff time to make sure that all goes through.
Okay. So I have a question since I'm doing the presentation. Can the property owners say something?
Can the property owners state something?
Yes, the ones that's here.
They absolutely can.
Okay.
Again, if they're here to state that they want the board to be in favor of the rezoning, they're welcome to make that statement.
All right. So
they can't. I don't want to tell them what they can or can't say. I think it would probably be inappropriate, again, for them to say where they would do on something before they have the evidence, but they will certainly hear
I'm saying just
from
let
anybody.
the property owners.
Sure. Let them come up and say.
All right. Okay.
If anybody wants to come up and... Come on down.
I'm not in that property area. My question is...
Can you introduce yourself to us there, Ms.
Gail K. Watson, citizen. In your research, I would like to know why was one of the areas rezoned that way when there are manufactured homes all around. I could see it if there were none, but on that street there are manufactured homes. So that's my question. In your research, why was it rezoned that way? Because it doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
My understanding, I haven't done a whole lot of research. My understanding is that it wasn't zoned for commercial, and then quite a few slipped through the cracks. I went on the tour, and Miss Judy is absolutely right. There's manufactured homes all over that neighborhood, but my understanding from our end is that for various reasons that kind of happened without necessarily being
It
supposed
slipped
to
through the
happen.
cracks when they have to get a permit? Really?
But I think this is all about 10, 15 years ago that these things kind of happen. You know, but I may be misspeaking about the history, so.
Mr. Mayor, it happened before any of our current staff was here. I think that when we go back and look at when zoning occurred, there likely is not going to be evidence as to why a parcel was zoned a certain way or not. I think that the best we can do to recreate that is see what's there and then ask professional planners, independent professional planners, why would any city zone like they do? And generally, the feedback we've gotten from industry professionals is that there's a layering of zoning, and that it goes from the most intensive uses, like on a state road corridor, US 45, to less intensive uses. So you'd see commercial and then residential only with site-built homes, and then there would be further in, as you move further away from the state road, there might be opportunities for something less intensive like manufactured homes. So I think that speaks to how the layers got to be. I think specifically how a manufactured home ends up in an area that doesn't permit manufactured homes probably falls, our best guess would be that it falls on a shortfall of staff, where staff didn't follow through on when someone pulled a permit to move in a mobile home to check the zoning and ensure that it was or wasn't compatible with the zoning ordinances or the zoning maps at the time. That's our best guess. I don't think there's no document we can pull to say why did we permit a mobile home to go in there. My guess is that it was an error on our part.
And then now, the citizens are being penalized for it.
Well, I just want to remind everybody that at this point, nobody's penalizing anybody. What we're asking is to walk through the process, and then we'll make a decision. So nobody has said yes, nobody has said no. So it seems almost like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse at this point. You guys have made a request, and we're saying it's normally $1,700 per parcel. We've lumped all that together so that it will be $1,700 at once. And then once we work through the process, then we'll get to the part where we say yes or no. But at this point, nobody has said yes or no. I know that staff has said that they would likely, if the application were submitted, they would likely be opposed to it, but they haven't seen the application yet either. So, at this point, we are pretty early in this process. There should simply be let the process work out.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, we understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, we understand that you're saying about lumping it all together and all that. We got that.
Okay.
What we're saying is we want to expedite. We want to know when the zoning occurred. There should be some records somewhere in this history. People have gone in archives and pulled up stuff from 1978. So there are some records somewhere where this occurred, when it happened, who was involved in the process. Was anybody in the neighborhood even asked about it? That information should be available. The $1,700, I know you say you're going to lump it all together. The question is, what is it for? What does the $1,700 fee cover?
The bulk of that money is for advertising costs. So by state law, and I think it's 3, we have to advertise that property is being rezoned 3 times in 3 different papers. Is that right? So there's $900 right there. So and then the rest of it is in Little Schoolhouse. So I'm not sure exactly how to answer that question again. The bulk of it goes into advertising costs. It doesn't even come to us. It's just passed is passed through. We have to do it.
He said earlier that they would need time to go back and find out this stuff. So I'm just saying that's a question that we have. It don't necessarily have to be answered tonight.
Well, that's what I'm hearing. Staff is not an unwillingness to answer the question.
Okay.
It is that no one is prepared with the history tonight.
He said that.
My feeling is
we understand that.
right. My feeling is that the answer is probably about 25 years ago somebody went in and did the zoning.
Or whatever
you know.
Because I know a piece of property that was zoned commercial, and they were trying to make him get it rezoned and pay these fees and everything, and it had been zoned commercial for years.
Right.
So I'm just saying there are records of this stuff somewhere. So
somewhere.
Just
and we've been doing a lot of study trying to figure out with roads and power lines and sewer lines, trying to map it all out and figure all that. I don't think, there's just a lot of detailed questions here. I don't think that we're prepared to answer them tonight. We're prepared to listen.
Here
sure.
So you can
we'll think about it. And
whatever.
again, nobody is saying no to the rezoning. What we're saying is we have a process. We got to get to the process. And all we need is an application. If you guys want to band together and put in the application, that will start the process.
Gentlemen, I'm Bishop Williams from
Welcome,
Orlando,
sir.
From Orlando, Florida. The Shawanda's apartments down there, I was the one built them. I owned them. On 7th Avenue, I have 2 mobile homes there. And and I built St. Paul. I think that was St. Paul. Yes. St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church. I also pastored a while. And I just don't have 1,700. They give me that lot. I built the church for them, just for them. They just give me the lot where the old church was. The new church was built on 8th Avenue, I believe, ain't it? On 8th Avenue. And I'm the one who built it. I worked here with you all, with the city, for years. And I don't have $1,700. I just don't have it. And whatever y'all do with Miss Judy, I'm with it. And I beg you to help us if you will.
Well, that's why we lumped it all together, so that if you got, my understanding from Ms. Judy was you had 17 different parcels. How many parcels did you have, Ms. Judy? 12. So it was 10 to 12, so that would be everybody putting in 120 to address those needs, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak tonight? So, just to recap, all that we need to do is to have all of the parcel owners who want to participate band together, make sure that they've signed the affidavit or whatever that is left to do, get with Little Red Schoolhouse so we know that they are the ones, the property owners, the ones voluntarily wanting to seek this process. We'll lump it into one $1,700, so however many people you get, we'll share that equally. And then once that application is submitted, that will start the process, and then we can go through the process and figure out if we say yes or no. You got to come, Ms. Judy, to the microphone because there's people watching us at home.
So you would not consider rezoning until you get the application in the fee?
Correct. For anybody. We would never consider rezoning anything until we have the application in front of us. Then we can do our due diligence.
Okay. So you have to advertise.
We have to advertise.
And all of that, regardless of whether you
for anybody and everybody.
The zoning or not.
Correct, if I'm understanding the question correctly. So anybody that wants to rezone, they have to advertise, they have to put in the application, we have to advertise to let all the affected party members around know. That's all by state law, we don't have a choice about that.
If the application is denied, do you get the money back?
No, because we had to spend it on those advertising fees, and we did the due diligence. So everybody goes into it knowing they're taking that risk. Anyone else that wants to speak? Commissioner Glanzer wants to make a comment.
Well, I just have a question, and because I am confused now. When you put an application to rezone, the money goes to advertising so that the neighbors know you're planning to rezone, and that it's a change, and you got to make sure that the neighbors are okay with it. How did it happen that if they say it all got rezoned at some time and they never got notice of it? That's what I don't understand. I didn't understand that till tonight, that she said that at some point in the last 25 years, their zoning changed. How can you do that without notifying the owners? Do you think, you know what I'm saying?
Mr. Mayor?
Sorry.
Commissioner Farnsworth, he's got the most history on the
I do, don't I? Our property was part of that rezoning, because we're right a block from 41. So my primary house, and there are a few other houses that we own right there, and we were notified of the rezoning. I remember distinctly talking about it. I've been thinking it's at least 20, 25 years ago. I'm not really specific on the time frame, but I do remember being notified of the changes. So,
do you have any memory of the reason? What was
the only reason that was given that I recall is that any, like a main thoroughfare, like our Main Street and our Central Avenue, they said that one block in from those streets would be rezoned commercial throughout the city, and the reason is that to help potentiate commercial property in those areas.
And normally, when the city does something like that, because it is expensive to rezone, so the idea is that the city would then take on the cost of rezoning it. You would continue to pay the taxes at a residential rate as long as you live there as a residence, but if you wanted to sell the property, you could sell it as commercial. So it seems to me the question isn't necessarily, as long as you continue to live in it as a residence, then you'll pay residential property. Now the question of if a storm comes through and knocks your house down, what happens then? To me, that's a separate question I'd like legal to maybe look into. Maybe he's already looked into it. I'm not sure we can answer that one again tonight. We'll put it on the list of things, but that's a fairly common practice to incentivize residents to help build commercial. So, Mr.
Okay, so we're saying that we were notified about it being the commercial property
25 years ago.
And I'm saying, what about the notice about the change in the residential setting in that area?
That probably would all happen at the same time.
Well, we didn't get notices.
Yeah.
I'm saying we weren't noticed.
We can look into that, Ms. Judy. I'm not sure.
So you don't do things without
Right.
notifying the citizens.
We always do. So that's what we got to figure out is we don't do things. That's the whole idea about the rezoning is of advertising 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
We would never rezone someone's property. And I can't speak for the people that were on this bench 25 years ago, but I doubt that the people who were on this bench, that was your father. I doubt he would have rezoned people. I doubt he would have rezoned people without telling them too. So he would have been up here when this all happened. I doubt he would have done something without telling folks what was going on and explaining it to them either. So I can't speak for him and say what did or didn't happen, but it would boggle my mind to have any commission that would rezone property without communicating to the people.
The commissioner of zoning board.
Can I say
Yes.
something?
You can't, sir, come up here and introduce yourself, sir?
Can you make a little diversity
Can-
in this area?
You have to come up and introduce yourself, sir, and
Oh,
right
my
now.
name is Aflanis.
Right.
Aflanis Marçal. I'm a
Okay.
Brazilian.
Right.
No?
Right now, sir, we're talking about potential. Yes. Well, sir, right now what we're talking about is the potential of a rezoning effort. So if you want to speak about a rezoning effort, you're welcome to make a comment. But if you have a different comment, we have a comment section at the end of the night. I thought you were with this group of folks. Okay, all right. Does anybody else want to make a comment? We look forward to that application. We look forward to moving through the process. Mr. Manager?
The questions that have been asked tonight, we will run the video. We will get those questions. I would just offer that if you can submit questions in writing for things that we miss, we'll be happy to address every question in writing, and we'll transmit it back to you, and we'll copy the commission. I mean, we're happy to answer questions to the best of our abilities. If we don't know, we'll simply say there's no records. We can't tell why things may or may not have happened.
Okay? All right. Okay, we will move right along. We already did our public announcements, so can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Herson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We have no public hearings and ordinances, so we'll move right to our agenda items. Ben, if you will make your way down and lead us through the Alachua County Fire Rescue Contract.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioner Ben Buckner, Fire Chief. I'll be brief. This is that time of year every 3 years. Lately, we've been negotiating a contract with Alachua County. The current contract we have went in effect in October of 16, October 1 of 16, and it paid the city for our services that we provide in unincorporated Alachua County. For FY17, it provided $175,000. FY18, the same amount, and then in FY19, which we just started a few days ago, provides $185,000 for that service that we provide outside of municipal limits. That service also covers all of Alachua County, not just our first run territory. Once we get out of that first run territory, it's basically considered mutual aid. But our timeline, we believe, if you look at your packet, we did an updated table for 15 years worth of payments to all the contract stations in the county, and you can see the history. The payments have fluctuated basically over that 15-year period for the city of Newberry from $140,000 to about $208,000. One of the in my years here, one of the things that I don't think anybody could ever really pinpoint was what was the methodology for coming to those numbers. I mean, if you look at 2008, that's when the recession hit. We went from 208,000 down to 145,000, and we're providing the same level of service that we were providing in 2007. So the methodology, I don't think, has ever really been pinned down. Years ago, part of that methodology was, here's your operating budget, here's a percentage of calls that you run in the unincorporated area of the county. If you got $1 million budget and it's 30% of your calls, we owe you $300,000, and we're going to take 2 or 3 years worth of call average and figure out what that percentage is. Seems fair enough. Of course, that can get expensive. Our call load within the unincorporated area, I don't have the exact numbers, but we stay pretty steady around the 27 to 30% mark. That's about what our percentage of calls are. So, that being said, what we're here tonight to ask you guys to authorize staff to go ahead and begin our negotiations with Alachua County. As you guys all know, we have a long-standing, very good relationship with the county on the fire services side. We've had disagreements in the past. We've been able to work them out. But the folks that are in place now with the city and with the county, we have a very good working relationship, and I think there's probably not anything we can't get worked out together. You also have a copy of the current agreement. In that current agreement that, as I stated earlier, went into effect October 1 of 16, we have, after September 30th of 18, which puts us this time of the year, we have to notify the county between now, October 1 and December 31st, that we wish to negotiate the contract dollar amounts for fiscal year 20, which would be next fiscal year, 1920. So that's why we're before you tonight, to get the authorization. Manager New and myself, we talked, and we think that given our relationship with the county and what we believe the meeting of the minds can get done, I think we can probably get this. Our goal is to get it done by the first part of December. Quicker we can notice them and start, we can start the negotiation process. But I can answer any questions that you may have. If you have any, I'll do my best to answer them.
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Martin?
I don't have a problem pushing that forward. I would only remark that it is probably important that we don't continue to look like we are just asking for money from the county. I trust that you'll have your ducks in a row as far as what the information is and what the costs are, and would probably try to advise if we could do some sort of a multi-year with just some sort of bound escalator that makes it easy for them to say yes, but covers our basis as much as possible. Probably not telling you anything you already don't already know. This isn't your first rodeo with them, but as an aside, a question though, has there ever been discussions with them about just a charge per call?
Yes.
How does that play out?
Mr. Mayor, there has been those discussions have happened in the past. The problem with the charge per call that you run into is you start talking about level of service, and that's one of the things. And if you look at the spreadsheet that you have in the back of your packet, what we provide for a level of service versus another department that doesn't provide the level of service, there's a funding differential for a higher level of service, in my opinion. There should always, if you have a higher level of service, you're willing to pay for that service. And that's where you run into, well, if we give Newberry $100 a call, do we give Windsor or another department may not provide the same level of service, $20 a call? I mean, that's where you kind of get into splitting hairs, and that creates problems. Just plain and simple, it creates problems. I'm a big believer in level of service does play a role in what your cost should be.
And what the chief is diplomatically saying is that we have the most professionally run fire department in the county. And so when we respond to a call, people are getting first-class service. So if we based it off of the level of service that they're getting from the city of Newberry, it would sort of highlight that to the other departments. Commissioner Barton, was that your final thought? Commissioner Herson?
And perhaps Chief Buckner can speak to this. As I look at the table and the changes and the amounts that the county has, I'm guessing, remitted to the different municipalities, Newberry's been relatively flat, but we look at Melrose, Windsor, Cross Creek, La Crosse, and in the last 5 years, or at least from 09 to 14, and even moving forward, some of those dollar amounts changed drastically, or at least from 15 to 19, almost a 4x increase in Melrose, Windsor, Cross Creek, and La Crosse, whereas the other municipalities remained flat. I'm just curious what that reasoning, or if you know why.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a little bit of knowledge of that through the county's budget process. That was something that was discussed at length. And we kind of kept a finger on that pulse, if you will, because we knew we had this coming up. Alachua County has basically committed, for instance, we'll just take Melrose, for instance. In FY18, they were paid $109,000 from Alachua County for those services, same services we provide, which is initial fire response and EMS. In FY19, they're going to get $260,000. Well, the reasoning behind that is, number one, Melrose is hiring staff, and I believe it's full-time staff, that the county is helping them pay for. So they're going to have 2 people on duty. My understanding is 2 people on duty, 2 full-time people on duty, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that $260,000 is going to help facilitate that. So whereas they were volunteers before or paid on call type of, they're going to have, that Melrose area is going to have 24/7 coverage. The difference is the level of service. You get 2 people for $260,000 a year, Whereas Newberry, you get 4 people with a lieutenant, state certified driver operator, and 2 firefighters for $185,000. So when you start talking about parity and talking about is there a per call fee, those are the types of problems that you can run into with a per call fee. It's a level service issue. What I would like to see us do is come to a methodology that works and that everybody can live with. I don't think it's one size fits all. I will tell you that. I think your professional career departments are going to have a separate methodology than what your non-professional, volunteer, or what they call combination departments are going to have, because there's a level of service issue. But that's my thoughts on it. Not to tip the hand too much, a little bit about, so much about what I think. But that is part of the process. And back to Commissioner Martin's question earlier, when Manager New and I negotiated last time, our draft of what we hope to see in the contract did have an automatic multiplier, and it kind of got bumped out. Those negotiations at the time were they weren't as harmonious as we had thought they might be, or we had liked for them to be. I'm hoping things will be a little bit different this time.
We have a much different relationship right now.
Right. And there's some different personnel in there, staff-wise and administration-wise.
We're seeking authorization, so a motion. We're just
Seeking authorization to negotiate.
Does anybody have any further? Does anybody have any further questions before we get in motion, Commissioner Farnsworth?
Obviously, with Melrose only having 2 full-time people, I mean, that's not enough to run a fire department if you actually have a fire. Don't you have to have a certain amount of people outside when you have somebody inside, correct?
Correct.
We don't want to throw Melrose under the bus.
Well, and Melrose is going in the right direction, as is Windsor, as is Cross Creek. That's why you see the increase in those 3 departments in particular. And I only use those because those are departments that received the lion's share of the increase in money this year. The main reason for that is for them to work towards getting to where they need to be more like the Newberries. I don't know if that'll happen in my career. It may not. But you're right. There's a 2 in, 2 out rule. It's a state adopted in NFPA and Florida Fire Prevention Code. It's recognized as the standard. We held ourselves back in, I believe it was 2000 maybe. The city held themselves to that standard, and they made the jump and went 2 in, 2 out. And they hired additional personnel. We're also an ISO rating of 3, whereas Melrose, Windsor's, Cross Creeks, my guess is they're probably 9s. So we're a 3.
I think that's right. They're 9s.
What about the area of coverage? Does Newberry have a larger area of coverage than these other municipalities?
We cover 64 square miles, and I believe next to Alachua County we have the second largest coverage area in the county. If I said that right.
If we did not come to an agreement with Alachua County, how would that affect our department? Would we still have to respond to calls outside our jurisdiction, our area?
No, we would not have to respond. We would not have to respond. I will say this, though. I think I would prefer us to negotiate and come to a really good agreement with the county versus trying to decide whether call is a county call or a city call on the fly, and us having to say, well, we're not going to that call.
Right.
That's a tough call.
Yeah.
So
especially
I prefer us to come to a better resolution than that. Obviously, that's something that may be out there, but
yeah, I mean, I would too, but
it would, it would mean if we didn't come to an agreement, we obviously don't have a contract. We're not contractually obligated to respond to those calls.
Yeah, I mean, I would much rather have an agreement, but I also don't want us to be taken advantage of either.
Understood.
I think the trend with the county is towards methodologies. Let's establish a methodology, and then you can come back and you can tweak it. Does the dais have any further questions for the chief? Okay, you want to make that motion now? Do we have a motion and a second? We accept those motions second, even after the further conversations. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Glanzer, a very impatient Commissioner Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, executive officer, thank you, Ben. Executive officer evaluations. We talked about these last time, and do I have them all, or do you guys have them?
We don't have any yet.
Okay, so take one and pass it down. You should have the city attorney, city clerk, and the city manager. These are the same as they were last year, so Commissioner Hersom, this would be your first go-around, but for everyone else, this should look familiar to you. And what, Mike, do you remember the date we want these back? They have 1 week to fill them out?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're requesting that those be returned to, I believe they're going to Deborah.
Yeah, if you could get them to Deborah.
Next Monday, the 15th.
If you see Amy, I'm sure Amy can hold them for Ms. Deborah, that's fine, but Deborah will get them, she'll compile them all. So 1 week back to Deborah. Any questions on the officer evaluations? No? All right, then we will move on to the resolutions, and let's make sure that we get this right. We still have, we have Resolution 2018-42, and it's concurrent resolution that we're going to add with it.
It's Resolution 2018-49. That's
49.
concurrent with it.
That's the one that was handed to you right as you were sitting down. I've got 47. So 49 goes along with 42.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay. So Wendy, did you want to come down and take us through? So do we need separate motions on 49, on 42 and 49?
We do.
Okay. But you'll present together. All right.
Mayor and Commissioners, the applications, you have two applications before you tonight, and they're both for the Florida Recreation Program, that they fund different kinds of acquisition and development for outdoor recreation opportunities for local governments. And in the applications, you can do a maximum of 2 applications. The maximum amount of requests that you can, maximum money that you can ask for is $200,000. And this application that you have, the one for 2018-42 for that resolution, has to do with the Freddie Durden Park. And that one is looking at doing some renovation of basketball courts and also the construction of volleyball courts. And the project is looked at as the total project amount is $64,430, and the match that's required by the state program is that a 75-25 match. So we could apply for that amount of money. You have to state your total project. It has to be a project that will stand on its own. And each application, the reason why they're all separated out and that everything has to be done separately is because they each have to be considered that way. So
And guys, just so we're clear, these projects are all projects that the commission already approved in the wild spaces list. So we're not talking about new projects, grants to go after different stuff.
Right.
We're talking about ways to stretch those wild spaces dollars.
Exactly, right, yes. So
45 is a separate standalone.
that's
We'll
the
get it.
project for the next one that you would consider for the
Right, we're not
the
there yet.
Newberry Sports Complex.
So
That's
42 is volleyball courts, and what was the other?
And renovation of the basketball courts, and there'd be some lighting.
What's the difference between 42 and
49 is the clause.
It has to do with the
CIP.
capital improvement program and the capital improvement element. The part of the program is that you just have to designate those. Oh, okay. You'll do 42 and you'll do 49, so 42 would be first.
So
and
42 is we'll do it,
okay.
49 is, will be in the CIP plan.
Okay, all right,
And same thing for 45 and 48, right?
right,
Right.
exactly. Okay.
We found that last minute clause that says it had to be in the CIP plan, so they slipped them in.
And we just wanted to make sure, because if you don't list exactly the program, just how you're putting it in your grant, then it doesn't, they don't count that. You want to get all the points, so we want to be able to do that.
All right, does anybody else have any other questions about 2018-42? Okay, Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, resolution number 2018-42, a resolution of the City Commission of Newberry, Florida, authorizing the chief elected official to make application to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for approval of the city's 2019-2020 Florida Recreation Development Assistant Program FERDAP grant for improvements at Jimmy Durden Park, adopting the city's comprehensive plan as the city's community development plan, providing effective date, and for other purposes. The appropriate motion is to pass the resolution upon reading only.
So moved. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Hersom. Any questions on the motion on the floor? Does the public have any questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passed unanimously. Now we need one for 2018-49. Do we need to read that one?
I'm going to read that one, Mr. Mayor. Resolution number 2018-49, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, committing to amendment of the 5-year schedule of the capital improvements element of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan to include renovation of the basketball courts and construction of sand volleyball courts at the Jimmy Durden Park, subject to the receipt of state and/or federal grants to fund such additions and improvements, and providing for an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass the resolution by reading of title only.
Do I have that motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, who has a hot date tonight. He's ready to go, and a second from Commissioner Hersom. Any questions on the motion on the floor? Commissioner Farnsworth.
The construction of sand volleyball courts, is that, this is what's actually going to be done?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we pulled projects out of the Wild Spaces Public Places projects list, and the beach volleyball courts are part of our Wild Spaces projects program. And we found 2 that were scheduled for this year that best matched the criteria for further grant applications. And as the mayor described, we're really just trying to leverage the Wild Spaces money and get more mileage out of it, stretch those dollars.
Because I don't know that it's sand volleyball court either. Is there a...
We've already had that conversation. We already we had that conversation back in the Wild Spaces.
Or does it become
a litter box?
Litter box, yeah.
Well,
what I'm thinking.
I've had a lot of people ask me when those sand volleyball courts are coming in.
What, for the dogs?
No, for the school volleyball team. Okay. Any other questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Any questions from the public on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, Wendy, we'll move on to 2018-45. You want to take us through this FERDAP?
Just when you jump in, could you explain why we're having the companion resolutions that are going with the first resolution is authorization to submit a grant application. The second resolution is identifying these projects in our CIE. Could you explain to the commission?
Actually,
why?
I think we covered that already. Right? Okay. So we covered that.
So in this, the next application is for the Eastern Newberry Sports Complex, and that's where we're looking at doing multi-purpose fields, as listed in your public places project. You have $800,000 designated for that. One of the major types of fields that are allowed and they're looking for as a part of the FERDAP program are soccer fields, and so the multi-purpose fields. So we know that those will also be used for soccer fields. So we're using that program to take it forward to the state to get the maximum amount of money that they can provide, which is $200,000 to have $1 million project for all these different fields that out at Easton. So that way they meet the highest number of points, and it's what's needed and in our plan. So you have the same ordinance, same resolutions before you to authorize the application and also for the capital improvement program to update that.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Wendy on 2018-45? Also is already a pre-approved project in the wild spaces. Hearing none, Mr. Attorney.
Resolution number 2018-45, a resolution of the City Commission of Newberry, Florida, authorizing the chief elected official to make application to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for approval of the city's 2019-2020 Florida Recreation Development Assistant Program, FERDAP, grant for improvements at the Easton Newberry Sports Complex, adopting the city's comprehensive plan as the city's community development plan, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. The appropriate motion is to pass the resolution by reading of title only.
Do I have that motion? Motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Glanzer. Any questions on the motion on the table? Hearing none, does the public have any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Does anybody have any questions on 2018-49? Mr. Attorney?
I actually believe it's 48.
I'm sorry, 48.
Right.
48.
Okay.
That's what happens when you get going.
Resolution number 2018-48, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, committing to amendment of the 5-year schedule of the capital improvements element of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan to include soccer multi-purpose fields at the Easton Newberry Sports Complex, subject to the receipt of state and/or federal grants to fund such additions and improvements, and providing for an effective date. Mr. Mayor, the appropriate motion is to pass the resolution by reading of title only.
Do I hear that motion?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Herson. Do I get a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Glanzer. Any more questions on the motion on the floor? Does the public have any questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. All right. Certified local government training. Wendy, you're getting a lot of airtime here tonight. Stay right there.
Mayor, this is about the training that was being planned and discussed at your Historic Architectural Review Board meeting, Planning and Zoning Board. The state is offering this training. It's a part of the program that we have because our city has been a certified local government since back in October of 2007. And the benefits of being a part of that program, it's a state program, is the training and technical assistance that are provided by the state through whether they come to us or they have state and regional programs that you can get training through that. They also have different grants and things that are available just to certify local governments. So they help you with your ordinance and your historic preservation as your public policy, which is what happens when you decide to become a certified local government, when you apply for that. So this is just an opportunity open to everyone. We wanted to make sure everyone knew about it. It's on October 16th. That's a Tuesday from 6 to 8:30 p.m. And it'll be held here at City Hall in the meeting room. And we have representatives from the state, from the from the Division of Historical Resources and the state, and another person, I can't remember.
Lots of boards. So is this just an announcement, Wendy?
Yes, it is. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew about it, where everyone is welcome. The commissioners, elected officials are encouraged to come, as well as the Historic Architectural Review Board. We're going to send another reminder and invite to a few other groups that are local. There are a couple local CLGs, the Micanopy and City of Gainesville, that I believe they're going to send a few people.
And from 6:30 to 8, are we providing some snacks?
It's 6 to 8:30,
6 to 8:30.
We will have a break.
Right in the middle of dinner time.
Right.
Perfect. Steaks for everybody.
Definitely. Oh yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wendy.
Quick question: is that going to be streamed on YouTube?
Will it be streamed on YouTube?
We will be videoing that because then it will be available for other people who can't make it to that meeting. So.
Good thinking. Okay, Brian, you want to make your way down and talk to us about code amendments to facilitate solar farms?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last month at the APA Florida conference, the American Planning Association Florida conference, there was a presentation given by Florida Power and Light on solar farms and how power companies are doing these utility level generation farms. thought it was very interesting, and I kind of got excited about it because, you know, there's a lot of benefits that the city of Newberry, I think, could take advantage of. And so I wanted to present that to the commission and seek the commission's direction to move forward with some potential amendments that would facilitate those developments. So, you know, some of the, it is touchy, it's moving forward. Some of the features of a large-scale solar generation plant, as you can see, it actually is very low impacts to the land. Even the frames for these devices are driven directly into the ground. There's no concrete bases poured. They drive the steel frames down into the ground deep enough that they are anchored securely for wind load reasons. They don't fly up. And then down the road, 20, 30 years from now, when they're retired, they pull them up out of the ground, and the ground is virtually, you know, unused. It's not a lot of impacts there. They generally do not pave. You can see kind of like the picture there gives you some scale as to, in terms of the size of the arrays relative to human scale, and also you know, they generally do not pave, and so again there's less of an impact. You can maintain these on dirt roads or even grass roads. There's virtually no sound generated from these things. Some of them that actually move with the sun have little motors and gears that do turn them, and so there's a little bit of sound from that, but nothing that generally travels off-site that would be obtrusive to neighbors. The only water consumed is when they wash them. They have, you know, eventually have to have crews come out and wash the dust off of them and maintain their maximum efficiency. And during last year, and this is appropriate for right now with Hurricane Michael bearing down on the state, but last year in South Florida, a couple of the large-scale solar farms were affected by a hurricane, but the damage was caused by material from outside of the farm flying in and damaging the panels. It wasn't from any of the panels being ripped up and flying out or hitting other panels. So you know, they seem to be very safe and well constructed. Some of the potential benefits, first and foremost, obviously, is diversification of our ad valorem tax base. You know, this could be a significant shot in the arm, especially in light of potential for Amendment 1 to lose some of that diversification. The property will, when it's converted to a solar farm, it does lose the agricultural exemption, and so then, of course, it's taxed at a higher rate. And then there's also the tangible tax. It can create opportunities for local land maintenance and panel cleaning services. Of course, the engineering work and all is done by their own teams, but they do have residual need for the lawn maintenance and things. As you can see, there might be opportunities for joint use with agricultural purposes. It might be a combination of lawn maintenance. You're absolutely right. They're experimenting, they told us, with those concepts. You couldn't do billy goats, but you can do sheep. So, and while Newberry might not necessarily be benefiting directly from solar generation because of our FMPA, and we do our own electric generation, it does contribute. It would be contributing to the overall energy independence of the state and region with the solar farm, clean generation of energy. And then, like I said earlier, the land is easily converted back to agricultural or other uses at the end of its tenure, somewhere in the 20 to 30 year range. Just give you some examples of what some of these places look like. This is in DeSoto County. That was FPL's first solar farm. They said, call it Florida's first solar farm, large scale. Okay, there you go. Hammock Solar Energy Center in Hendry County. These things are typically set up to generate around 74.5 megawatts. And then another one down over in Putnam County, the Coral Farms Solar Energy Center. And so what staff is requesting is support for the development of solar farms in Newberry. Not out of the realm of possibility. I threw that in there. That's an actual solar farm. It's the first of 100 that they're developing in mainland China. Their thinking is they want to get the youth involved in the green power movement, and so they're going to do 100 different character-themed solar farms. But
Can you
anyway,
see those from space?
possibly. I don't know. You'd have to see. Have to see a picture of it, but. You know, oftentimes, one of the problems, and I mentioned this in the staff report, that without having any code, which our code doesn't address solar farm development at all. And so what typically happens is they get lumped in with a typical industrial or large-scale power plant type of development, and it really is not appropriate for that. And so, you know, here we have a chance to actually be proactive and get in front of something that's occurring throughout the industry and facilitate the development. We think it'd be good for Newberry, and so staff seeks the Commission's direction to move forward with coming back with some language that would facilitate the development of these farms.
Okay, does the Commission have any questions for Brian on this?
Is anybody looking to put in a solar farm anytime soon?
I mean, I think that the industry is heading in that direction, so I think that's what Brian's talking about, is trying to get in front of it, and so that we have it ready. It's no different than what we did with the commercial development downtown, trying to come up with different packages that we have ready made, so if somebody comes, they don't have to wait for us to develop it. It's kind of there. No questions from the dais. Commissioner Herson?
Is there any storage of, expended solar panels on most of these facilities? Because a lot of them have some types of heavy metals in those.
They indicated that the panels stay there until the end of their useful life, or if there's some that are damaged in between, they take them out, they ship them out and replace them with new ones. The presentation was given by Florida Power and Light.
Okay, so I think all we need is a head nod to staff to go develop that language and come back, and then we'll have something that we can read. Is that correct? Right. All right.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I get a universal head nod. All right, good job, Brian. That will take us to item G, the emergency resolution 2018-47. I've got -48 on this one.
It's -47.
-47, okay. So we've got Michael bearing down on us. I know that Alachua County has declared a state of emergency. I tried to participate in a conference call with the governor's office this afternoon about all the preparations that are going. I believe what staff is looking for is a just in case, so we go ahead and have it done. Is that right, Dallas? Did you have a presentation to make about this, or?
No, sir, I'm just here to answer any questions. As you mentioned, the resolution before you is to declare a local state of emergency and authorize all the authorities underneath Florida statutes to the city manager in case we do need to use those authorities this week with Hurricane Michael.
Okay, so this resolution basically empowers the city manager to act if the emergency hits us. Okay, have a motion from Commissioner Glanzer.
I'm going to go ahead and read it, Mr.
Go
Mayor, if you
ahead.
don't mind. Resolution number 2018-47, resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, declaring a local state of emergency for the City of Newberry pursuant to Section 252.38, subsection 2, Florida statutes, due to the threat of Hurricane Michael, providing for waiver of procedures and formalities, delegating authority and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass the resolution by reading of title only.
Commissioner Glanzer, you still have your motion? Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner
Second.
Glanzer, a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any questions on the motion on the floor? Does the public have it, Commissioner?
It expires within 7 days, or when the emergency ends, whichever comes first.
Does public have any questions?
Section 6.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dallas. And that brings us to comments. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We forwarded email correspondence to you last week. We submitted an application to Florida DEO, Department of Economic Opportunity, seeking $8.9 million in grant funding for construction of roadways, water, sewer, utility infrastructure in our AgTech commercial park. Those typically have about a 30-day turnaround. We are If you know folks that are engaged with either DEO, Enterprise Florida, or the governor's office, now is a fantastic time to reach out and garner their support. Governor Scott has about 90 to 120 days left in office, and I think they are looking for strong applications to support before he leaves office. And feedback we get from his staff is ours is a very strong application. So anything we can do to push it over the top is really, really appreciated. All of you have the information in hand, but if you want to discuss thoughts about how to reach out to decision makers, feel free to contact me or Brian or Wendy. We received a Hurricane Michael update, or we passed the emergency resolution. The long and short is Hurricane Michael's looking a lot like Hurricane Hermine a year or two back. And it's actually 2 years ago now. It's currently a Category 1. It's expected to intensify in strength to Category 3, potentially Category 4, before making landfall. Right now, landfall, the eye looks like it's going to make landfall somewhere west of Tallahassee. But if it slows down, they expect it to curve east. If it continues going pretty quickly, then they expect it to stay over to the west. We have a somewhere between 50 and 70% chance of experiencing tropical force winds if it stays on its current track. If it bends east, it's going to go up. So we expect to see wind. We expect that wind to begin picking up tomorrow night after dark and probably be at its most intense around Wednesday morning. We've gone through all the prep that we do. The Alachua County EOC has advised us that they're planning to open Easton tomorrow at noon. Okay.
So we'll report tomorrow at 3 whether or not it'll be open.
Okay. So things change. It's fluid. So anyway, so Easton is now the primary shelter for Alachua County. It's the first on the county's list of shelters to consider opening. If you live in Newberry, that's a very good thing. If you want the shelter to be in your community and not have to go halfway across the county to get in there. And we do a great job of operating and maintaining. The county was very pleased with our response to Hurricane Irma and that shelter last year. So we'll continue to watch it, and we'll make a call Tuesday afternoon as to whether we'll be conducting business hours on Wednesday. It really depends on what type of impacts we think we're going to see in our community. We're also going to kind of be watching what all the other government entities in the schools are doing.
Quick question.
Commissioner Martin.
Should the citizens stay tuned in the event that that shelter is open? Do we anticipate some requests for hospitality such as we had last year? If people want to help, what's the best thing for them to pay attention to if they want to help people that end up in the shelter?
The best source of information related to the storm is through Alachua County EOC's office. We stay on it through our social media accounts and Facebook accounts, but actually Alachua EOC is the official spreader of the word, so we ask that residents go on Alachua County EOC's Facebook page and like it and follow it, and they will be up to speed with all the latest communication. If residents or our business community wants to reach out and support operations in Easton when it's a shelter, they can coordinate through Travis, and our staff will work with Alachua County to make sure that those donations are coordinated appropriately. Don't have everybody show up for lunch one day and nobody show up any other time, and make sure that the county identifies where those donations are coming from. Next on my list is I intended to get you accomplishments and goals completed today, and the storm kind of got in the way, but I will finish that list. These are citywide. I'll get that transmitted to you by email. I think it's important that you have them in hand as you go through your staff evaluations or officer evaluations. I might even put in a good word for the city attorney's office when I'm working on our accomplishments and goals. Maybe more important than Hurricane Michael, which I expect Hurricane Michael to be all hype and no action, just the namesake, all hype, no action. But more important than that, we're starting an adult recreation cornhole league. It's not starting. We've done that in the past. So we're beginning this season's cornhole league, and this is really fun. And hoping we're challenging the community to come out. This is not. You don't have to be an accomplished tennis player, basketball player, volleyball player. We are talking about chunking a 6-ounce beanbag 27 feet and being able to laugh at yourself and maybe give somebody a ribbing because they've obviously had way too much time practicing cornhole. So it's Wednesday evenings. I believe it starts at 6:30. I forwarded an email to sign up. It's $100 a team, but that covers supplies and staff time and all those sorts of things. Really a good time. Really a good time. And if you want to see the city manager take a bunch of verbal abuse, because I'm in there talking smack like nobody's business, and I'm not a very good cornhole player, so I'll talk a big game, but then once it's time to play, everybody finds out that I'm a pretender, and they like to dish it back. So I've sent it. That's exactly right. But I hope you'll all consider signing up this year. It's probably 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks on Wednesday nights. And you can bring your own cooler, and I'll leave it at that. Just bring your own cooler in the gym. I'll leave it at that. And then finally, I sent you an email today. We're not going to consider it tonight. It will be on the next agenda. The property appraisers certified property values came in 1.8% less than anticipated, and that resulted in a projection of about a $48,000 deficit in revenue projections this year in our general fund. So we offered you 3 options in an email today. One of those is that staff can adjust the millage rate without authorization from the city commission to compensate because it's under a certain threshold. Staff doesn't have the courage to even contemplate raising the millage rate to make that adjustment. So that option, but it had to be acted on by this Thursday or we could no longer do it. So that option is not on the table. The 3 options remaining will be to wait and see. And by wait and see, what we're going to do is identify $48,000 worth of expenses that we can just hold off on and see how our revenues are coming in. And if our revenues are going to end up being a $48,000 shortfall, then we will either adjust those expenses out of this year's budget, put them in next year's budget, or hold off on them or come up with some other alternative. But we won't plan to spend money that we don't know is coming in. So option 1 is what we call the ride it out option. We could simply bring back $48,000 worth of cuts and reductions in expenses and do a budget adjustment and be done with it and just pick them up later. If we want to, we think that's similar to the ride it out. It just is maybe jumps the gut a little bit in staff's eyes. And the last thing we could do is just say we're going to transfer $48,000 out of general fund reserves to cover it and not worry about it. Staff recommends option 1, which is ride it out, but that'll be on the agenda for next city commission meeting. You'll have 2 weeks to think about it, and it's not earth-shattering, game-changing type of stuff. It's just a little bit disappointing. That concludes.
Mike, how much were we under on the last year's budget?
Well, if you'll remember, at the end of the 3rd quarter, we made about a $92,000 adjustment for increased revenues. So we got 3/4 of the way through the year and recognized that our projected revenues were short, or that we were going to get an additional $92,000, or we actually did. So, but we'll finish the year. We think that we finished the year where our revenues exceeded expenses by more than $100,000. It's too close. We're too close to the end of the fiscal year for me to tell you with any more accuracy than that, because we're still receiving invoices. We're still making those final payments, but we should have a good handle on it at the end of November, and then a better handle on it whenever the audit comes back in early April. Is that when the audit comes back? When the audit is issued by the end of February, because that is a requirement. And I knew that.
That money just goes in general fund reserves, or
Yes, sir, that's where staff recommends that it goes. I mean, that it'll come to you and you'll get to make that decision, but staff recommends that it just ends up in general fund.
So, I mean, it could actually cover any kind of shortfall that we have.
Yes, sir, that is
That's the
correct.
hope. Is that it, Mr.
That
Mayor?
is it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Attorney?
I don't have anything.
All right. Madam Clerk?
This year, we will be celebrating for our community, we'll be recognizing Florida City Government Week. We have partnered with Newberry Branch Library, and the event will be October the 25th. That's on a Thursday from 3 until 4, and we'll have the utility bucket truck and a fire truck out there for.
It was a great time last year.
We had a great time last year, and it's for all ages. A little bit of history and a little bit of show and tell. So we hope that everyone will come out that can. I know that some of you have already responded that you can't, but we really, if you'll spread the word, we would appreciate it. It was a great time last year.
Had a good time, a chance to go up in the bucket truck and look down on all the kids. Have a good time. She doesn't look like she thinks that's a pretty fun. Right? It's Commissioner Martin's turn to go up in the bucket truck this time. Get in the harness. Is that it, Madam Clerk?
I have one other
Please
thing that
do.
I would like to comment on, going back to the zoning that was discussed tonight. In 1992, the city did not have a full-time planner. We contracted with North Central Florida Regional Planning Council until 2012, actually. Lowell Garrett was one of the planners that helped us during that time. But in 1992, which is the year that I think the state mandated that a municipality of our population, I believe it was by population, we did not always have a comprehensive land use plan, and we were mandated to establish one. And I remember that we had public meetings over at the municipal building, more than just a few. And Newberry did not have what you would consider a plan before that time. We had a zoning book, and you had your maps, but Commissioner Farnsworth was, I agree, down State Road 26 and State Road 2741, or 2741, and back then that was Main Street, and this was Central Avenue. You did not have a lot of, you had very few businesses. You had the Purple grocery store, I forgot, Stingles, maybe. But the reason why that zoning was changed was to allow for economic development, looking forward, looking into the future. And it was one block on the east, on the north and southwest on State Road 26, and the same thing for what was referred to as Main Street back then. So whoever is going to be fact-finding, you probably will need to contact North Central Florida Regional Planning Council. And Scott Coons, I am sure, was there at that time. And then Lowell Garrett came aboard in 2012. So, but that was already completed by that time. So.
Well, it is important to know that we didn't always have the level of staff that we have now.
Right.
So we got along, we made do. So, but we
Right.
appreciate that history, and that's a great tip to go for. Right. Is that all you have, Madam Clerk, tonight? Thank you, ma'am. All right, Commissioner Herson?
No, I'm good.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
Yeah, Scott Walker should have information regarding that also. I mean, he was an attorney at that time. Is he still our attorney? Or is
He was a young buck,
But
what,
we did-
19 years old?
I think we had Allison Foles last week.
Sorry, I couldn't corral any of them this time
No, it
around.
wasn't?
so,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember, like Judy said, I remember all that, and I was not in favor of it. I thought it was kind of a stupid thing to do because of all the houses that we were involved, and our houses were involved, and that whole area, and there's like, there was no commercial down there, and you're gonna switch it to commercial and then force people to comply with that. I didn't care for it. I wasn't on the commission at the time.
If I remember correctly, the residents in the homes could,
Opt out.
no, the planning changed, but as long as they lived in the house, it remained residential use. Because Bounds was not here at that time. And when that property came up, then it fit right in the commercial.
Right.
But I don't think that was totally adhered to either, because I know there's been some
Exceptions.
selling of homes and stuff that are supposed to be in that commercial area too. So.
But that was your understanding as well?
Yeah. And I also want to know if the attorney's office is going to give us our ethics training this year since Courtney's gone, or what do we have to do about that?
Richie, heard any update on our ethics training? We got a commissioner who's looking forward to it. Can't wait.
I just like check that little box since I did it.
I don't know the details, but I'm confident that we're going to be offering that, and I'd be happy to get some information and report back at the next meeting, or in the interim, speak with the mayor and the manager about that.
Courtney provided steaks, mashed potatoes, the whole, it was a 7-course, just, yeah, for everybody. It was absolutely good shot. Commissioner Bartlett, is that it? Commissioner Martin?
Well, I'm sorry that the Hurricane Michael will be the second hurricane that the Seminoles have to deal with this week. Two things. I don't necessarily have a hot date tonight, but I'm just, some things we just need to move along and get out of the way and get the business of the city completed. 2 dates. Next Monday night at the GACAR office, I'm actually going to be taking the opposing position on the half-cent schools tax, because I'm actually not in favor of the process of doing that. I will be, it's a pseudo debate with Brian Marchman, the lead person promoting the actual sales tax. I didn't bother to go into that much with Ms. Griffin tonight. It's disappointing she did not seek re-election. I think she's potentially the only sane one over there. No, didn't get re-elected, I'm sorry. And then the 21st at the library, I'm actually going to be hosting an amendments review for all those Florida Constitution amendments. There's obviously a gang load of them, so I thought it'd be an opportunity to just sit down and go through them piece by piece. People get educated. It's not partisan in any way, shape, or form, but hopefully people, if they need to actually get something specifically answered, they can do that there as well. That's all.
Commissioner Glanzer?
Pardon me, yes, it's at 3:30. They close at 5, so we'll probably need to wrap up by 4:30 or so. So it'll be fairly fast-paced, and I think it'll be an hour and change worth invested, so you're not just in there Christmas treeing the thing.
Commissioner Glanzer?
I just wanted to mention something about the Newberry Main Street Festival, unless Ms. Loy, if you're going to get up later at Citizens Come. Okay, so I hope I know everything right. Then it's November 17th, Saturday, 10 a.m., 9 to 4, and I hear there's 80 some vendors that have been lined up, which is extraordinary. I can't even imagine what that's going to be like. So congratulations on that. Second thing is I am anxious too to hear about how the zoning happened, because when I rezoned my commercial building across the street about 9 years ago, it's right on 26, and I had to go through the zoning process to get it rezoned commercial, so it was left out of that mix. So somehow things were hopscotched maybe along the way.
and
I'm
I'll-
not asking for an answer right now, but it'll be interesting to see how the process moves.
And I also misspoke. I'm sorry. Our planner was hired in August of 2002, not 2012. So we did not have a planner until 2002.
So if some were missed and some got in and some got out, I agree. I think it was with Commissioner Farnsworth that if people didn't want to be in it, I mean, it sounds like it was kind of forced. So I'll be curious and interested to see how that conversation goes. That's all I have.
Okay. I just, to the efficiency of running the meetings, I absolutely agree we need to get to the business, but every commissioner is equal. So before we have a motion, I want to make sure every commissioner gets a chance to finish asking the questions. So I'll always make sure that everybody has a chance to say what they want to say on the dais before we move forward. So, but other than that, absolutely, we need to get to the business. First off, I wanted to ask, have we got our mutual aid agreements in with everybody surrounding now in preparation for?
Yes, sir. No special action currently. Those mutual aid agreements
With
are
the co-ops
standing.
as well?
Yes.
The co-ops were the problem
That is
last
correct.
time. We got
You're
mutual
correct.
aids with the co-ops
We
now.
did.
That's a wonderful achievement. If you remember the last time, we did not have a mutual aid. The co-ops had opted out, and we vowed we would get that done. So kudos to staff for making sure that happened. The school board will announce at 1 o'clock tomorrow its decision about whether or not to keep the schools open. So we're looking for what other governing bodies are doing. 1 o'clock, the school board will make its decision. Boo at the Zoo, we won't meet before it happens. That's October 21st. It happens at Canterbury. It's a great little evening. So if you're looking for a holiday thing to do, it's at Canterbury. They decorate the stalls. Commissioner Hurst has probably been there before. They have animals that you can pet, little ones that are haunted house, for the little kids, a couple for the bigger kids. That's October 21st. Boo at the Zoo. And then, the city manager spoke about it, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that grant that he mentioned that's on the governor's desk. We got two really good letters of support in that grant, one from the Alachua County Commission and one from UF and IFAS. And in the letter of support from UF and IFAS, they backed Newberry and the Ag Tech Park 100%. So they've identified the need. They've identified Newberry as a forward-thinking city. And if you haven't had a chance to read that letter, I posted it on social media. I'll make sure you get a copy. It really does praise the actions of this board and staff and what we're trying to accomplish with the Ag Tech Park. So to me, it was a great moment. I hope my fingers are crossed for the grant, but just knowing that UF and IFAS want to partner with the city of Newberry and really are applauding what we're trying to do out here was awesome. Absolutely. And that's it for me. Open up for citizen comments. Miss Peggy.
Just one of the things about the festival, we've got about a month, I guess. It's kind of rushing at us. But we're trying to emphasize the activities for children this year. So besides ponies and face painters and balloon ladies and bouncy houses, and we're going to have a camel. You've probably seen it on Facebook. And that camel was just super looking. They have the thing up on top so the kids can ride as a group inside. But it looked thought we could play Lawrence of Arabia maybe or something. Ooh. No, and the 21st, I want you to know, this is just an offhand comment, I want you to know how important I think this is on the 21st about the constitutional amendments, in that I'm giving up a volleyball banquet so that I can be there.
And Miss Peggy, there's also, if you go to the Alachua County Libertarian page,
Yes.
there's an hour-long video where they go through every single amendment, the League of Women Voters' take on it and data, the Libertarian Party's take. I watched it last night. I thought it was, and a couple of interesting points were made that I hadn't considered. So it's worth, maybe not watching the entire hour at one time, break it up into time, but you can do that and compare people's concepts, compare people's ideas.
So you're running the one on the 21st, Mr. Morgan?
It's just one opportunity, and
One opportunity, but it's
but
still
yes,
one.
there's a lot of information out there.
It's a very complicated ballot. So, any other public comment? Hearing none, we are adjourned.